The nation was still reeling from the sudden passing of actor Menglong when a bombshell leak from inside the Beijing Municipal Public Security Bureau threw the entire narrative into chaos. For weeks, the story had been simple, tragic, and seemingly closed. A beloved star, weighed down by the invisible burden of fame, consumed alcohol, walked onto a balcony, and taken the fatal leap into eternity. Fans mourned. Agencies issued polite condolences. And the industry turned solemn eyes toward yet another cautionary tale about the pressure of celebrity life. But as new information slipped from the guarded walls of law enforcement, the neat tragedy began to unravel, replaced by whispers of substances, coercion, a hidden chain of responsibility that stretched beyond a single man's despair. What was first painted as suicide has now become a mystery tangled in contradictions. The leaked police files, including fragments of interrogation transcripts and forensic reports, tell a story very different from the official press releases that comforted the public. According to those documents, Yu's body contained not only alcohol but an unsettling cocktail of sedatives and stimulants, the kind of lethal mixture that could dismantle a person's sense of judgment, distort their reality, and push them into dangerous, irrational decisions. Most shocking of all was the testimony of a man identified only as Li Kang, a 32-year-old figure with ties to Beijing's club circuit, confessed to supplying Yu with substances days before his death, inside the sterile walls of the Public Security Bureau, under the relentless gaze of Chief Inspector Zhang Wei. Li Kang's words were recorded line by line, each sentence tightening the noose around the official narrative. At first, Li had denied involvement, insisting Yu was merely a casual acquaintance, someone he had seen in passing at parties or bars. But when confronted with toxicology results, his facade cracked. He admitted that Yu had begged him for pills, first to silence his racing thoughts, then to jolt him awake from the exhaustion those pills induced. He wanted something to make the noise stop, Li muttered, his hands trembling under the harsh fluorescent lights. But the next day, he wanted something to make him move again. It was like he was fighting two wars in his own body. I just gave him what he asked for. The room, cold and metallic, seemed to shrink with every word. Inspector Zhang pressed for details, asking what kind of substances, in what quantity, and whether Li had warned him of the risks. Li's answers painted a grim picture. Benzodiazepines to induce calm, amphetamine-based stimulants to fight fatigue, traces of ketamine, an anesthetic often abused in underground circles. None of it measured properly. None of it prescribed by a professional. The kind of reckless self-medication that could shred the line between lucidity and chaos. Forensic specialists corroborated the confession. The leaked report confirmed that Yu's blood and tissue samples contained multiple compounds, a cocktail so volatile that even a medically trained individual would have struggled to manage its effects. Alcohol was present, yes, one forensic doctor wrote. But the real danger lay in the combination of depressants and stimulants. Together, they create a neurological storm. A state of disorientation where rational judgment collapses. In such a state, self-destructive actions may occur without true suicidal intent. This revelation hit fans like a second death. Mourn a suicide is one thing, to realize that their idol may have been chemically manipulated into his fatal acts was another. On social media, the hashtags exploded overnight. Justice for Yu, police leak, and truth for Menglong trended at dizzying speeds. Fans posted tearful videos, some clutching photographs of the actor, others demanding accountability from the industry that seemed to consume its own stars. They told us he was sad and drunk, one post read. But now we know he was poisoned by more than grief. Yu's parents, devastated but determined, stepped forward to add their voices to the growing storm. Emotional statement outside their home in Shanghai. His mother revealed that Yu had seemed increasingly unstable in the days before his death. He wasn't my son anymore, she said through tears. He would smile one moment, then break down the next. He kept saying strange things. That he couldn't rest. That there were people who wouldn't let him sleep. I thought it was just stress. But now I wonder what was in his body. What was done to him. Her words added weight to the suspicion that Yu was not acting solely of his own free will. Meanwhile, within the Public Security Bureau, whispers spread among officers. The leak had ignited fury among senior officials. But it also pushed the investigation further than anyone had anticipated. If Li Kang was telling the truth, he was merely a small player in a much larger game, A career, not a kingpin. His admission that others bigger than me provided such substances to multiple celebrities cast a shadow over the entire entertainment industry. For Chief Inspector Zhang built his career on exposing organized networks. The path forward was clear but dangerous. If one actor is gone because of this, he reportedly told colleagues, how many more are walking that same edge right now? The public demanded answers. Journalists camped outside the bureau, chasing scraps of information. Nightly news programs replayed grainy images of Yu's final public appearances, analyzing his body language for signs of instability. Speculated that his last interviews, where he appeared restless and distracted, were evidence of the substances already taking hold. He looked like a man split in two. One commentator noted, the smile of a star, but the eyes of someone fighting demons no one else could see. Li Kayang's testimony, leaked in fragments, described those demons in haunting detail. Claimed Yu called him multiple times in the week leading up to his death, desperate for refills. He said he couldn't stop shaking when he was alone, Li recounted. That he needed to be sharp for his fans, for the cameras. He kept saying, I have to keep going. I can't stop now. He laughed when I warned him. He said he'd danced with devils before. The words, chilling in their casualness, spread like wildfire once they hit the press. To many, it sounded less like the voice of a man determined to die and more like the cry of someone trapped, spiraling in chemical chains he could not break. First wave of leaks saturated the media. Conspiracy theories bloomed. Some argued that Yu's death was a cover-up for industry exploitation, that he had been silenced after threatening to expose practices that forced celebrities into chemical dependence. Others suspected foul play, suggesting that someone might have spiked his drinks or manipulated his supply. The police refused to comment publicly. Inside the bureau, the case notes grew thicker, and the web of connections stretched wider. Still, the official line remained unchanged. On paper, the cause of death was suicide by fall. Among the officers handling the case, the language began to shift. In drafts of reports never meant for public eyes, phrases like death under chemical influence and external contributing factors appeared. The acknowledgement was subtle but powerful. Yu Menglong had not simply jumped, he had been pushed, if not physically, then by the substances coursing through his veins. Substances placed there with the help of others. And so the story that had seemed finished began again. Now darker, messier, and far from resolved. The leak had cracked the facade, revealing a glimpse of the machinery grinding behind the tragedy. But with every revelation came new questions. Who else supplied Yu? How long had he been using? Was the entertainment industry complicit in keeping its stars medicated to keep the money flowing? And most terrifying of all, was Yu Menglong's death the first, or merely the latest in a string of hidden casualties? The answers lay deep within the walls of the Public Security Bureau. Under transcripts, lab results, trembling words of a man who had admitted to placing dangerous pills in a superstar's hands. As fans across China lit candles and demanded justice, the case teetered between silence and explosion. Truth, once leaked, could not be sealed again. The first part of this unfolding saga ends not with resolution, but with a haunting uncertainty. Yu Menglong's death was no longer just a story of sorrow, it had become a riddle wrapped in secrecy. A case that threatened to expose the cracks in an industry and a society struggling to reconcile the cost of fame. The balcony from which he fell is no longer just a place of grief, it is a crime scene. And its shadow stretches far across a nation now desperate for answers. The days following the first leak were chaotic. Beijing's skyline, normally humming with a rhythm of relentless progress, foreshadowed by a darker rhythm, murmurs of conspiracy, rumors of cover-ups, and a nation split between grief and fury. Outside the Beijing Municipal Public Security Bureau, fans gathered with placards demanding justice, their chants echoing through the concrete courtyards. Inside, the pressure mounted. The leak had forced the Bureau's hand, silence was no longer an option. Chief Inspector Zhang Wei knew that the only way forward was through the storm, not around it. Li Kayang was brought back for a second interrogation. This time, the officers were prepared with fresh evidence from the forensic team. They laid photographs across the table, pill fragments retrieved from Yu's apartment, bottles without prescription labels, bank transfers suggesting payments to named accounts. Li's composure, fragile to begin with, shattered further. First interrogation had drawn out a partial truth. This time, investigators wanted the whole web. Inspector Zhang leaned in, his voice firm. No, you weren't working alone. The substances found in Yu's system aren't purchased by accident. Who supplied you? Who profits from this? Li hesitated, his eyes darting toward the camera fixed in the corner of the ceiling. He knew every word would be preserved, eventually sealing his fate. Finally, his voice cracked. You think this is about me and him, he said. You don't know how deep this goes. There are people, big names, who make sure stars get what they need to perform. It doesn't matter if it kills them. As long as the shows go on. As long as the fans keep buying tickets. No one asks questions. The room fell into tense silence. Zhang gestured for him to continue. Rattled off details of an underground network, suppliers embedded in Beijing's nightclub circuit, couriers who delivered to hotels where stars stayed during shoots, managers who looked the other way while their clients swallowed pills to stay awake or knocked themselves out after 20-hour days. Words painted a portrait of an industry propped up not just by talent and hard work, but by a chemical crutch hidden in plain sight. Forensic findings supported this claim. Specialists from the Beijing Forensic Medical Institute provided a chilling analysis of Yu's last hours. The benzodiazepines in his system would have dulled his central nervous system, slowing his thoughts, deafening his resistance. The stimulants, however, have yanked his body into a heightened state, forcing him into restless energy, combined with alcohol. The result was a psychological storm, disorientation, hallucinations, paranoia, and a collapse of rational judgment. It's not simply intoxication, one report noted. Chemical warfare inside the brain. He may have believed he was escaping something that wasn't even there. When this detail leaked, the public's grief turned into rage. On Weibo, trending topics carried words like murder, cover-up, and industry killers. Fans argued that Yu's death was no longer a private tragedy but a public scandal. Candlelight vigils outside his apartment turned into protests outside entertainment agencies. Posters with his smiling face were marked with the words, "Deserved better." The tipping point came when Yu's parents, who had remained quiet after their first statement, spoke again. This time, words were sharper, their grief laced with anger. Standing before cameras, his father said, "He did not just drink too much and fall. He was pushed, not with hands, but with poison and pressure. Days before he died, he told us, 'Don't let me rest.' We asked him who, but he only shook his head. Now we understand. He was trapped." The phrase "they won't let me rest" spread like wildfire. Media outlets plastered it across headlines. Fans quoted it in morning posts. Some interpreted it as Yu's cry against industry exploitation. Others as a veiled reference to those supplying him substances. For its meaning, it turned the narrative from suicide to victimization, from personal weakness to systemic failure. The entertainment industry scrambled to contain the fallout. Agencies released statements declaring zero tolerance for illegal substances. Producers spoke of implementing wellness programs for actors. Yet whispers persisted, stories of young stars fainting on set, of managers distributing unmarked pills, assistants tasked with keeping talent stage ready at any cost. One anonymous assistant, speaking under condition of anonymity, told a reporter, "This isn't new. Everyone knows. The schedules are impossible. Expectations inhuman. The only way they keep going is by taking something. Yu was not the first. And he won't be the last." The Bureau's investigation widened. Raids were conducted in clubs and private apartments suspected of housing suppliers. Several arrests were made. Officials declined to confirm whether they were directly tied to Yu's case. Internally, however, officers acknowledged that Li Kaiyang's testimony had cracked open a door they had long been hesitant to push. Among the leaked documents was a phrase that stunned the public: death under chemical influence. It appeared in a draft internal memo, describing Yu's case not as suicide but as a fatality contributed to by external chemical factors. While not legally the same as homicide, the phrase implied shared responsibility, an acknowledgement that Yu's decision was not made in full control of his mind. The media latched onto this phrase, amplifying it until it became a rallying cry. He didn't die alone. He died under chemical influence. Fans printed it on posters. Activists used it to demand regulation of prescription drug misuse in the entertainment industry. Politicians, sensing public outrage, called for hearings on celebrity welfare, promising to cleanse the system. Through all this, Chief Inspector Zhang maintained a measured stance. In closed-door briefings, he reportedly told his team, "Our job is not to feed hysteria. Our job is to uncover the truth. No matter how uncomfortable. Yu Menglong's death is no longer just a case. We are held up to our society." As weeks passed, the case transformed from a single man's tragic fall to a national reckoning. Analysts debated whether Yu's death would become a turning point for the entertainment industry, or whether it would be buried under the weight of scandal fatigue. Parents across China shared their fears online, worried that their children chasing celebrity dreams might one day face the same destructive pressures. The story's ending, however, is as unresolved as the night Yu stepped onto that balcony. The final police report has yet to be officially released, though leaks continue to drip into the public sphere. Each fragment adds another layer to the tragedy, another dimension to the question of responsibility. A victim of his own choices, or of an industry that consumed him? Was Li Kaying a supplier trying to survive in a machine that thrives on silence? What is undeniable is that Yu Menglong's death is no longer seen as a simple suicide. It has become a cautionary tale, solved riddle, and a wound on the collective conscience of a nation. His smile, once a symbol of light-hearted dramas and youthful hope, haunts billboards and posters as a reminder of how quickly light can be extinguished when shadows close in. In the end, the question hangs heavy: did Yu truly leap from the balcony of his own free will? Or was he pushed there, by pills, by people, an industry that demanded too much? As Chief Inspector Zhang put it in a moment of rare candor, he may have jumped. The weight on his shoulders was not his alone. Someone put it there. And until we know who, his story's not finished. The nation waits, grieving and restless. Answers that may never come. But one truth is already clear: Yu Menglong's death was not what it seemed. It was something darker, something deeper, something that has left fans in chaos, desperate for justice in a world where even their idols are not safe.